mistake. Okay, so now I'm filming. Okay, Jennifer. So we're at the Lagoon competition right now. This is Jennifer Wimpy Erickson. This is Casey Johnson and his daughter.
Looks like it.
Tessa. You do look like your dad. Okay, here's Joy. Say hi.
Hello.
Do you think it would be too weird if I had this on stage?
No, it's just a little bouncy.
I want to really bad.
Like video in the crowd?
No, us. We're just walking around. All these people.
It's like random.
Going around. Here.
I did not want the bus to stop because I knew as soon as we stopped, then Bryan would make us practice our dances 10 times every time we stopped. So if we were, going to McDonald's or having a bathroom break or whatever, we had to practice in the mall parking lot, in the hotel parking lot, in McDonald's parking lot, everywhere. So we would all be like back there dancing around, having to go to the bathroom so bad, but nobody would say anything because we didn't want to have to stop. And then also, I think I mentioned it on the video, but I also remember Bryan was a perfectionist, and everything he did, he liked it. He had this vision that nobody else could see. But he had a vision of how the dance needed to be, and he would probably dream about it all night long as far as these dances. And we'd go back to hee-haw competition, and we would be in the parking lot practicing, and he would change something on us. He would change the freaking dance, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 15 dances I have to remember, and now I got to remember this change. And so that every time we would stop, we would have to practice that change again. And I totally remember. I can do it right now. It's like that. We were doing that change going back to hee-haw. It was in that dance. We changed that right in the middle, like 2 days before the competition. Yes, it did work. But also, obviously, Bryan was a great mentor. He always had a vision. I think he saw a vision in all of us. And it's something that I have thought about, especially as this is coming together. Things that I have learned in clogging as far as being part of a team and being part of a partnership and doing solos and dances. Clogging gave us a lot of the confidence that we needed to get through hard times in life, and we've all had those hard times. And I'm thankful for Bryan and Bonnie for kind of raising us and bringing us up in clogging, because it really taught me more lessons in life than I had ever thought it was. So thank you.
Brandon and I started at the same time. We started with Julie. Bryan was off to school, and he came home maybe 3 or 4 months later, and he told us a story about his Harvard experience and why he quit. Or did you quit? No, he just decided to do the clogging instead of the Fortune 500 companies. Now, I worked for a Fortune 500 company. You made the right decision. All you have in those big companies is a bunch of politics. Here you have, family. We're all your family. So you made the right decision. And Bryan taught me, I can't say you're responsible for my choices today, but what you taught me stayed throughout my life and gave me the ability and the confidence to do what I'm doing today. And so I appreciate you teaching. I was only there for a couple of years. I went on a mission, came back, clogging completely changed, and so I got depressed and I couldn't do it, you know what I mean? The new style I couldn't do, so I ended up going to the Weber State folk dance team and did that for a while, because they still did the old style clogging, but he was always encouraging. I wouldn't call Bryan the perfectionist, I called Julie the perfectionist, but Bryan was wanting to make sure that you did things right. We had the mirror there, we had to have all of our feet in the same position. So one thing also is Steele Family Cloggers, before I joined Steele Family Cloggers, was just the Steele family. And so I felt really privileged to join when they asked me to join, and I think it was Crystal and Brandon and Christy, right? And Brian Hill, yes, Brian Hill as well. So that was exciting for us to join the Steele family, and so I appreciate that. And Jess and Brandon, I can attest that you guys were the best cloggers out there. And it's not Bryan singing in you, you just had it. I mean, you were good. I was not the best clogger. I had to practice, and nobody knows this, right? I had to practice 2 hours a day to get to where I was going. I practiced hard. It did not come easy to me. I was not coordinated when I started clogging. But after I started clogging, I also played soccer, and our soccer team won first in state for 2 years in a row after that because of clogging, and gave me the coordination I needed to help my team now. So it taught me coordination and determination. So thank you very much.
Bryan's gonna make me cry, because the very second that we saw each other's eyes, there's that saying that says, it doesn't matter what you say, but it's how you make people feel. And that was Bryan. I didn't have a lot of support. I had a ton of support at home, but my mom was a single mom, so I ended up alone a lot. And the Steele family was very gracious to me. I was always alone to all the different performances and everything, and Julie and I had a connection before, and then with Tammy and Bruce, and it's the entire family. And Bonnie has always just been such an example, and so like I said, everything you taught us was awesome, but it's just how you make people feel, and that's a legacy, so be proud of it.
The Steele family. And I'm a crier. I hate that. Oh, try not to. But I remember lots of times Bonnie getting really frustrated with the Crays. That's what I was going to say. The Crays did not always listen in class, but they were always a lot of fun. So I never regretted having a Cray in our clogging team. Always good times. Bonnie walked out on us a couple of times. Like, I can't do this right now. I'll be back in a minute. I don't blame her. But with Bryan, most of my memories of Bryan when I was younger, just starting and dancing with like Best of the Wild West juniors, performing at mall after mall, and elementary school after elementary school. And Bryan he doesn't remember this, but he used to let us drive the van. He'd give us turns to get in front. He's like, I didn't do that, you did that. We would drive the van with Bryan. And he would give us like his little electric shaver, and we'd all pass around the electric shaver pretending to shave. And just really good memories. I didn't have my dad around. Bryan was closest thing to a dad for me. I used to go to church with Bonnie and Bryan every Sunday. Bryan dropped me off at junior high a couple times, and our van broke down, and I remember asking him not to pull in front of the junior high because I didn't want him to see the Wild West Clogger sign. And he pulled up and honked the horn and then told me to get out. So he taught me a lot of good lessons about just being who I am and not being afraid of it, and how to set goals. I have my little degree charts that we did, and setting goals to beat Jenny Johnson or be as good as Christy Richards, and I have all of those, and Jenny Powers. I set goals, and I used that throughout my life. And so I'm just grateful for everything Clogging gave me. It was more than competing at Hee Haw, and his friendships and memories and skills that I still use to this day. So thanks, Bonnie and Bryan.
You guys may only know me because of the Cobia Steele relationship, right? So I was part of the Corner Canyon Kickers growing up, the arch rivals.
That's right.
To the Steele family cloggers and the Wild West cloggers. But the amazing thing about this is that, so I started clogging when I was 7 with my dad, and back then it was the Sunset Cloggers, and you know, the Wild West cloggers were never on my radar until, you know, I got a little bit older. And whenever you'd go to a competition, there was always this, you know, intense friction. But one thing that was really cool is somehow my dad and Bryan forged a friendship, sort of a partnership, and the Steele family cloggers and the Wild West cloggers became best friends to all the Corner Canyon Kickers. And I mean, it completely changed my life just interacting with all of you. And so coming to this today has just been amazing to see so many people who I never actually danced with on the same team, but every time we went to a competition, you guys were there, we were always cheering for each other, and everybody would cheer for us, we would cheer for you guys. It was just an amazing thing. So it's so cool to come here and to see so many friends from our arch rivals who are my best friends now, and it's just amazing. I'm so grateful for, even when I came back from my mission and I was in college, Bryan reached out to me as a college guy, and he came down, and I think he came to my apartment at college one day and we talked business or something. It was really cool. And so I just am super grateful to have the interaction with this group of people and with Bryan and Bonnie. I do want to put a small plug in for my dad, okay? He is also doing something very similar this year. He is going on the very last Clog America tour, as you know, and he's going to Turkey in a month or so. And right before that, on June 23rd, they're doing their last Cloggers Festival show ever, unless Brandy's team keeps doing it. But if you can come down just keep your eye out on the Freedom Festival, June 23rd. My dad's going to be doing that last performance. He still gets up and clogs for about 20 or 30 seconds. And it's a lot of pain. He has bad ankles now. All of the cartilage in his ankles is degenerated. So he can get up there and dance for about a minute, and then he has to, take a chill pill. But he's going on his very last tour this year, and he would love to see any of you that could come and make it. It'd be really great. Secretly, we are also going to do some kind of something to honor him in some way, so don't tell him. Anyway, Bryan, congratulations. Thank you guys for being such a great influence and being such great, friends to our team growing up. And yeah, we're still bitter that we never won. I'm just kidding.
Because I had my big brother as the one that had all this vision for the Steele family. And so I not only had his influence as a teacher, but also as a big brother. And I remember Wild West Band, of course, and we would have, we'd be in there for days without showering or anything. And so it would be the Shabby Award.
Yay!
So what that means is you won the award for being the grossest, right? So we had days traveling across the country. I don't know how we ever made it to where we did because they would just trade drivers. We just make a beeline to where we needed to be. And lots of memories, practicing out in the hot, humid sun in Missouri, in the hotel. And it just seems almost like a dream, that life that we had, practicing every single week, several times a week sometimes. And then it changed my life. And I'm so grateful that I have a big brother and a sister-in-law that I love, and for their influence on my life.
Probably 12 and 13.
Was that before the Tennessee trip or after?
Definitely before.
You want to fight? Okay, so the thing that I wanted to mention, I could talk about the dance stuff growing up because Bryan had this massive influence. But more than that, I just want to talk about the ripple effect, because everyone here knows the analogy where you throw a pebble in a pond and it just ripples forever. And so because of Bryan, I know most of you here, and many of you I haven't seen for years. But it's like you just pick up where you left off, and that love never ends. It's amazing. Because of Bryan, I met Tuck, and there's this whole new generation of dance that has happened as a result of Bryan passing the baton to Tucker. And I know Maria and Bethany, and that's like a whole group that wasn't really a part of the Steele family of the Wild West, but they're still every bit as much of the family in perpetuity. It's amazing. And just to talk about Bryan's character, this is something that maybe LaShare would share, but she's got a million ideas, I'm sure. When Arian got married to Brett, we were at her wedding, and Bryan came up to LaShare and said, LaShare, I had this craziest dream. I dreamed it. Okay, I'll let LaShare tell the story, but it just talks about the ripple effect, how powerful Bryan and Bonnie. You know, Bonnie, when we talk about Bryan, it's only 50% of the equation, because Bonnie was really, I had more influence from Bonnie in the early days because I wasn't a coveted member of the Steele family cloggers. I was just a junior, right? I know, right? And we all wanted to be on the Steele family, the older team, but Bonnie really was the one that had all the influence for me when I was really young. And so just as much when we talk about Bryan, to me it's one and the same talking about Bonnie. So just a huge expression of love, and look at that ripple. Okay, so I'll screw it up, as guys always do. Maybe I should talk about Tennessee Hoedowners. I wouldn't screw that one up.
Yeah, we did. We got over that, thank goodness. That's a long story if anybody wants to hear that backstory some other time. So I'm going to tell one kind of funny memory from back in the day, and then I'm going to have my sisters come up to tell the other memory. But so I got put on Steele family really young, but I looked a lot older, but I was only 12 when I got put on Steele family, and so it was really overwhelming to me. And Bryan always made me feel like I was just as good as everybody else. But we had this really funny thing that happened. He probably doesn't remember this at all, but of course, in a 12-year-old little brain, I totally remember it because it was so devastating to me. We were working on a lift. Do you remember? Okay. We were working on a lift. You'll be like, that's not a big deal, but to a 12-year-old it was. We were working on a lift, and my shirt flew over my head. And so bra was showing to everybody, right? And I was only 12, and all these older kids. I tore off.
Training bra?
Probably. Tore off into the bathroom and locked myself in there and just cried and cried and cried. And Bryan came and knocked on the door and talked me down. And anyway, sounds so dumb, but he just was like, it's no big deal. Nobody even saw. And anyway, it still stood out to me. Isn't that funny? The other story I wanted to tell you, if my sisters will come up here with me. So this is the one that Bryan started to tell, Randy started to tell, and he was kind of telling it, right? So when Arian got married in, it was June, right? 2009, we had started the America's Got Talent process, thanks to this one. She really wanted to do it, and so she talked the rest of us into it. And it was pretty stressful, and it was starting to get intense, and we were realizing that we were all going to be at each other's throats. So we were like, what can we do? Like, do we ask someone to come help us? What do we do? And anyway, we kind of had that in our mind, and you're sworn to secrecy, so you can't tell anyone anything. And we were at Arian's wedding, and Arian was still in the temple. She was getting ready to come out, and we were in a circle surrounding Bryan, and we were all talking. He's like, you guys, this the weirdest thing happened to me. I had the weirdest dream. I dreamt that I was coaching the Fab Five. Isn't that the funniest thing? And he's laughing, and we're all like. And I said, Bryan?
He said, is something happening?
Yeah, I think he's like, what's going on? Because we all just literally jaws dropped. And we said, well, that's really interesting because we're actually doing America's Got Talent right now, and we were feeling super insecure, and we had thought about asking you to help us, but we didn't know. And we just knew that Heavenly Father was looking out for us. He had given Bryan his dream, and then you guys, I don't even know how to explain it, because both he and Bonnie literally dropped their lives for us on their own dime, on their own ticket. They drove and flew. I think he even had a funeral of someone that was super close, so he drove all night to go to the funeral and then drove all the way back so he could help us, so that we could have a good experience and so that we would still love each other when we were done. And I kid you not, you guys know this, you've seen this with Bryan, right? Every plane ride, he was quizzing on us on how we were going to answer this question, how we were going to answer that question, and Viva, you're the baby, so you have to answer this. And I mean, he had it all staged out, and then he got his kids involved, and they're helping us with music, and Jessica was helping us with choreography, and it turned into the most beautiful experience that could have been super, super hard. And I think that we also touched other people's lives by Bryan sharing his light with us, and then us getting to share our light with others just through this crazy talent thing that we call clogging. Anyway, it was beautiful, and Bryan's just always so close to the Spirit, and we appreciate everything that he's done for us. So thanks, Bryan.
That's awesome.
Hot chocolate runs because we had to do ice baths because we were old. So he would take us on get hot chocolate, and then we'd get our ice baths.
Do you want the microphone?
All that I did ended up in this.
Microphone's better.
My name is Greg, in case you don't know. I don't know most of you, actually. I grew up in the clogging world on a little bit different side. Bryan is my second father, in many ways. The month of May, I'm going to say, just sucks for us. It's very, very hard. And we have these little conversations at Lagoon that are very, we'll say, pressure relieving. I can tell when Bryan's having a bad day, but especially Bryan can tell when I'm having a bad day. We go for a little walk and we just kind of blow steam off. And we talk a lot. Most of you have a very unique relationship with Bryan. All of us do. Mine deals with competition styles. My memory is not dance, although it'd be a pleasure to dance with you. My dad was a dancer. I had a rival studio with Bryan. So growing up, Bryan wasn't necessarily beloved in our house. He was the rival. Dennis Kobe was a rival in our house. When Bryan and Bonnie first approached Marie and I working with them, I believe my parents' first thought was, what? Like, sure? You sure they're going here? My parents love you very much. But in the early days of America on stage when I was working for Bryan, we used to have these staff meetings of what we did well at a competition and what we didn't do well. There were 4 of us, and me being the young one, I got a lot of crap. And by crap, I remember seeing in one where I just kept getting yelled at. Not by Bryan, but it was kind of relentless. Bryan, everybody voiced their opinions of what crap I was, and then Bryan's response was, so you all responded that Greg is fine. And of course, they were like, well, no, Greg is a problem. I was so crushed that day, like self-esteem wise, I thought I should be done. I can do other things. Walked back to my computer, and at the time, me and Bryan sat back to back. Our chairs would bump each other all the time. And I'm back at my computer thinking, Lord, I just would love to be anywhere else. And Bryan walked up, didn't say anything, and he put a sticky note on my computer that just said, never forget, you're doing a good job.
Oh.
And it was such an answer to a prayer and such a blessing. To this day, it sits on my computer, don't forget, you're doing a good job. It's probably 18 years old now. And when I have a really crappy day, especially the day after Nationals or Monday, I read it often. It's one of my great testimonies. So, in all of my life, it's so good to be a part of Steele family here. But just so you know, I owe almost everything to you, Bryan. You're the only person who knows what May is like, and I can answer that in return to you. And thank God you asked me 20 years ago. I love you more than you know. Thank you, Mr. Steele.
How many people here know Bryan's real name? I have a story about that. We were in the car driving, it was Bryan, Greg, and I don't know where we were going, but this was in the first couple of years that we started working with him, and I just said some silly things. I was talking about somebody who had named their child by their middle name. Well, they named them a certain name, and they had the intent to call him by their middle name. And I was like, well, no disrespect to anybody who does that. I was just like, well, if you want to call him that, why don't you just name him that? So it's easier for them, right? And Bryan was kind of like, yeah, I mean, why would they do that? He was like, that's just dumb. I was like, I don't know, he's just like goading me on, right? And then he turns to me and goes, it's kind of like naming your kid David Bryan Steele. What? Oh my gosh, your name is David Bryan. I'm so sorry. Once again, I was just, yes, Bryan taught me to be well, first of all, to think before I speak. But he taught me all kinds of good life lessons, and we owe a lot to Bryan. More than you would ever know, but you talk about how your life was inspired in many of the things you did, and we like to say many times that our life was on a certain path. We had graduated in certain fields, and then Bryan dropped into our life. And we always say, the Lord said, turn left, go with that guy. And we've never looked back. We love you. Thank you.
Transplant, 100%. Grew up clogging in Utah, but did not dance America on stage, like on principle. Did not dance America on stage on principle. That's, you kind of go with the feeling of your director, right? So that's how we grew up. And I took over the studio that we were dancing at, and one day Bryan took me to lunch and said, I want to know why you don't come to America on Stage. And I think I talked for 20 minutes about why we didn't compete America on Stage. And at the end, Bryan just said, let me see if I can change your mind. And he started to talk about all the things that America on Stage was doing to build dancers and build kids. And the way that America on Stage's view was not myopic, right? It was not nearsighted. It could see what studios needed in the longevity. And that day, that lunch was a huge change for me in viewing America on Stage. Fast forward, I don't know, a year, and Bryan invited me to come and talk about this new clogging program that they wanted to create, and it was gonna be like Irish, and it was gonna have compulsory routines, and it was gonna be this huge new way that we were gonna revolutionize clogging. And I'd have no idea why, took a chance on, pretty sure I was still 18 at the time, took a chance on an 18-year-old girl and just said, Beth, I think you and Jen should be in charge of this program. And I was like, he's crazy. I am a baby and I know nothing. And I don't know, lots and lots and lots of years later, and I'm so grateful because the All Around Solo program has raised the level. It's raised the bar across the state, across clogging studios, and it's made it a community, which I feel like was so different than any other dance style that there is, right? I grew up in an environment where we didn't like our competitors, we didn't talk to our competitors, we didn't sit with our competitors, and now we have this situation where you get on stage with dancers from all over the place, and they all know the same routines, and they're all fighting, and it's like magic. Peter, I don't know if it was Peter or Bryan, one of the MCs this weekend at Nationals, just said, all right, we're gonna turn it on, and everybody dance, right? And there were 200 cloggers, 200 pro or champ level cloggers doing the same thing, and it was just pure magic for me. And it all came from this idea that Bryan had that we could create this compulsory experience for clogging. So I'm so grateful for Bonnie and Bryan. I'm so grateful that they trusted me to have this experience. And I told Bryan that when I got my ring, that I wanted my poem from him, and I told him, he said, I'm gonna be done. This was a couple years ago. And he said, I'm gonna be done. And I said, you can't be done. I am waiting for my poem, and you will say my poem, and I will not be up there if you are not saying my poem. So anyways, I know Bryan has done so much for the clogging world, and I'm so grateful for you. So that's all.
Rise and shine. Most of the time they're dancing when I say that, but I love to say it because it's just old school. I remember that when I was dancing, and so it was like, rise and shine. So I just love to say it anyway. I wanted to just mention, I was one of those kids that just felt the magic that Bryan created when I was growing up. I didn't start clogging until later, until I was in high school. And the memory I have, sorry, my voice is gone, I don't know why. It's like I've been talking for days. Yeah. And one of my earliest memories,
Tell them who you are.
Sorry, yeah. I'm the MC for Nationals. I've been doing it for 21 years. It was perfect because, thank you. I started like 2000 kind of announcing, I think, with Bryan, and I could always remember the years, and then 2020 just messed it all up. Now I have to figure it out in my head. So anyway, 21 years. But one of my earliest memories was, so I started later, so I was an older teenager when I started dancing. And I remember going, and the first time I competed at Nationals, I was from Southern Utah, so Renee Woolsey was my director. And I was with all those boys down there, and so I came into clogging a little bit later, and it was just, I was beat by all of you that are here, by the way. So in Southern Utah, I was pretty good. Like I was really good. In my studio, they were like, I was like, yes, I am pretty good. And then I got up there and competed against Randy, and I was like, okay, I'm not very good. And Mike Dyer and Jess Jones, and they all just, that's who I competed against, so. I was like, yes, I'll take second again, that sounds great. 5 firsts, 1 second. I was like, that's good, I'm good with that. I can do that. All the time.
way ahead.
But I made it was the Rocky Mountain team, and I can't remember the pavilion we were at, or it was some pavilion thing. It was outdoors. I just remember the ba-da-ba-ba-dum-ba-da, ba-da-ba-ba-dum-ba, and we did this dance all together on this stage, and I'm pretty sure that was the paper jacket year. Pretty sure. And I still have the paper jacket. I should wear it next year. It's disintegrating, I think. It's paper. But I do remember that.
We still have it. We use it as a napkin on the 4th of July.
Love the paper jacket. But it was so magical and so big and so amazing. And I know that you know that, and I tell people I live in Portland, Oregon now. I serve my mission there. It's where I met my beautiful wife. And so we live up there now, and I've lived there for the last 20 years. And I tell people about clogging, and there's very little clogging up there, so they have no idea what it is. And I tell them about May, and I tell them about a few things, and they're like, oh, they just kind of agree and smile, and I think they think, you're weird, and then they just move on. And they have no idea. So it's nice to be around, to come back once a year and to be around all the people who understand exactly what I'm talking about and can feel the magic of exactly what I'm talking about. And so I get to come once a year, and I get to be with Bryan. Wow, it's hard. I'm usually hiding behind down somewhere so I can just talk, I don't have to be in front of everybody. But it's going to be difficult to announce from here on out without Bryan. One, I'm not going to have any idea how the show goes. By the way, I really have no idea, like, all of the awards. Maria laughs because she's back there laughing because every time we get up there, she's like, this is the superstars. I'm like, awesome. I don't know what that is. What can you just... I really just get up there and read names. I have no idea what these things are. It's awesome. And so Bryan is always like, and next we're going to do this. I'm like, exactly. Thank you, Bryan. And we move on to the next award. So next year it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. But Bryan, thank you for, I think it was Mike and Jess that put it yesterday about the beat that they talked about. And they talked about the magic. They talked about all these different things that I know that you created. And we mentioned it, I mentioned it a little bit to you last night, but it really is something that is just near and dear to my heart. And it's what brings me back every May. Just for that one weekend, I get to come back and I get to feel that again. And hopefully I will for a long time. I don't know, it's up to Greg. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you. It really did change my life and influence me in ways that you don't know. But I will tell you, were very instrumental in my life. And thank you for that, Bryan. Love you.
I think he gets the story right, too.
First of all, I'd like to thank Bryan Steele for listening. My wife was so mad at him. She sat him down and gave him the riot act on what he was doing with his ribbons, and she didn't like him. Anyway, I need to be a voice for parents because clogging affected literally my whole family for 40 years. I feel like the children of Israel in the desert. And it doesn't look like I'll be free from tuck either. And my wife says I don't know any good jokes. Anyway, not that tuck's a joke, but anyway. Clogging has been amazing. Leanne Baudry set up the first arrangement. Randy and LaChere, duet partners, destined for success, till they stopped dating each other and then dated different people and ended up in the same place, and it was terrible. Randy goes on a mission. LaChere's at BYU dating guys. They go on a mission and say, oh, I know that girl. I dated her at BYU. Anyway, That's the first marriage from clogging. My second daughter, I don't know what she was doing, but they have a lucky penny. Do you want to tell me about that lucky penny, LaShare? I mean, Shondalee? No. Roger and Shondalee met at Lagoon, 12 years old, and they found a penny, 1975, the lucky penny. Well, the only time they'd see each other was at Lagoon, so we thought we were safe. And then they went to Rick's, and they happened to be up there together. They ended up in France for a month. Roger was over the boys, Sean Lee was over the girls. I asked Roger when they got engaged, how many dates did you call up my daughter, pick her up, and bring her home? And he was brave to say, and they're getting married in 2 weeks with one date. But they'd been together for 30 days. I figured out that they had 240 dates in those 30 days. So it worked. Now, you would think it would end there. But third daughter had kind of a collision in life and was going through a divorce. And guess who was the divorce lawyer? Spencer Tixon's dad, clogging. Anyway, another sister had a friend, and they said, hey, if Arian's getting a divorce, we got somebody we want to line him up with. So our third marriage was Arian and Brett Myers, who was a companion to RJ from Pocatello in his mission. Yeah, his daughters are cloggers. Anyway, so there's our third. Then shortly after that, well, actually a long time after that one, Val and I went on an inner city mission. And in that inner city mission, when we walked in set for our bishop's meeting, in walks the Hunts. And Bruce Hunt happened to say, well, we knew them from way back clogging because they were the first teachers of our kids. And Bruce said something that was interesting. Oh, that's a game changer. I think I'm going to stay. Well, then COVID hit, and it became kind of a miserable opportunity, but Bruce lined up his son with my granddaughter. And that was our fourth clogging marriage in the family. So I can't help but thank the Steele family cloggers for providing the atmosphere of good, honest exercise and workouts and practice. And the theme in our house was, it's not practice that makes perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect. So as a parent, thank you, Bryan. What a... Now Ray gets the last word.
I like it that way. Yeah, about the ribbon thing. Well, Bryan and I had a big discussion, and he heard my side of the story, and then we worked it out, didn't we, Bryan? And the best part about it was he loved me and I loved him. We respected each other. And Bryan was there when we needed him. Bonnie was there when we needed her. And it looks like it's really fun going to America's Got Talent, but let me tell you, they put you through the ringer, don't they, Bryan? And one of the first things Bryan did when they had their first, what would they call it, consultation? Or when you were meeting them on the phone and discussing what was going to happen. We were going to do fire burning. and they wanted to use that music. And they came to the agreement that it would be really cool to have them go down a pole. And Bryan says, "No, wait a minute, Ray, wait right here." These may not be your words, but this is the gist of it. He says, "These are wonderful married women, and we will not allow you to portray them in any other way." And they said, "Oh, sure, we won't do that, we won't do that." And he took over. He arranged practices in places that we didn't know anybody, but he did. We had to travel, sometimes quite a long distance to get there because they didn't give us places to practice. It makes it look like it's really all fun, but dancing behind the hotel with the rats is not that much fun, is it, Bryan? But my whole point of it is that Bonnie and Bryan helped take care of the girls. I was there, but he would put his foot down. He wasn't afraid to tell those people that we weren't going to do that. They wanted the girls to do a Moroccan dance. We don't do Moroccan dances. And with Bryan there, we had the steel to keep us from having to do things that we didn't want to do. And like the girls said, they took the time on their dime to come down because they wouldn't give them any hotel rooms, they wouldn't give them any how do you say that? Utilities? What is it? Anyway, they provided funding for us, and they did that on their own, and their family became involved. And as a mom, and Craig goes into Great Lakes about the romances and everything, but it comes down to this. As a mother, I pray daily for my children. And he opened up the opportunity for my kids to learn to dance. And they weren't that good right at the beginning, and everybody was beating them. And they persisted. And they persisted until one day they were able to beat other people. Not because they were trying to beat them, but because they were trying to do their best. And that came from his sisters that he helped train. We love all of the Steeles. Whatever last name they have now, they're still Steeles to us. And we love the whole family. And you've been a part of our lives, and we just want you to know that you were guided by our Heavenly Father. We personally know that. Each one of my kids have a testimony of that. And I do too. Because the day I wanted to pull them out, and I was praying about it, God told me no. And so I didn't. And we became best friends.